For 5 years, I was the invisible servant in my own home. But when my daughter-in-law announced she was hosting 30 sophisticated relatives at my house, without asking me, I finally snapped. I packed my bags, locked the pantry, and left them to manage the perfect party alone. The disaster that followed exposed every single one of her lies. The morning sun felt warm on my back. I was on my knees in the garden. The soil smelled rich and damp. It was my favorite place in the world. My hydrangeas were blooming in thick blue clusters. I had spent 30 years tending to this garden. It was my sanctuary. It was the only place where I felt like myself. Inside the big house, I was just a ghost. I wiped a bead of sweat from my forehead. For a moment, I felt peaceful. But then I heard the sound. It was the sharp crunch of tires on gravel. My stomach tightened immediately. I knew that sound. It was my son David and his wife Vanessa. They were early. Usually they did not come until dinner time, and they only came when they wanted something to eat. I stood up slowly, my knees popped and creaked. I dusted the dirt off my apron. I took a deep breath to steady my nerves. "Martha!" The voice pierced the quiet morning air. It was high and demanding. It sounded like a spoiled child calling for a servant. I walked around the corner of the house. Vanessa was standing by her convertible. She looked like she had stepped out of a magazine. She wore a white silk dress and oversized sunglasses. Her heels were 4 inches high. They looked ridiculous on the garden path. She was tapping her foot impatiently. David was behind her carrying shopping bags. He looked tired. He always looked tired these days. His shoulders were slumped forward. He gave me a quick apologetic smile, but he did not say a word. He never stood up to her. "There you are," Vanessa said. She pulled her sunglasses down her nose. She looked at my dirty apron with disgust. "You are a mess," she said. "I was gardening," I replied quietly. "Well, go get cleaned up," she commanded. She waved her hand dismissively. "We have a lot to discuss. It is an emergency." "An emergency?" My heart skipped a beat. "Is everything okay?" I asked. I took a step forward. "Is it your health?" Vanessa laughed. It was a cold and brittle sound. "No, Martha. It is not health." She walked past me toward the back door. "It is much more important than that." I followed them into the kitchen, my kitchen, or at least it used to be my kitchen. Now it felt like her stage. Vanessa threw her purse on the marble island. The heavy buckle scratched the surface. I winced but said nothing. She opened the refrigerator without asking. She took out a pitcher of iced tea. She poured herself a glass and drank it all. She did not offer any to David. She certainly did not offer any to me. "So here is the news," she announced. She leaned against the counter. "Uncle Robert is finally coming to town." I paused. I knew about Uncle Robert. He was the wealthy patriarch of her family. He was a real estate mogul from Chicago. Vanessa had been trying to impress him for years. She wanted him to invest in her lifestyle brand. "That is nice," I said politely. "It is not just nice," she snapped. "It is critical." She slammed the empty glass down. "He is coming to evaluate us, to see our lifestyle, and he is not coming alone." I felt a cold chill run down my spine. "Who is he bringing?" I asked. Vanessa smiled. It was a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Everyone," she said. "His business partners, his wife, my cousins, and the investors from the city. It will be a small, intimate gathering," she said. "Just 30 people." I blinked. I felt the air leave my lungs. "30 people?" I whispered. "Here." "Of course here," she said. She looked around my kitchen possessively. "Our apartment is too small, you know that, and this house has the right aesthetic. It looks like old money." She said it like it was a transaction. My home was just a prop for her play. "When are they coming?" I asked. I was already calculating the logistics. 30 people meant 5 chickens. It meant 10 pounds of potatoes. It meant days of cleaning. Vanessa checked her diamond watch. Friday, she said casually. Friday, I gasped. That is in 3 days. It is plenty of time, she said. If you start now. She reached into her purse. She pulled out a thick stack of papers. It was a clipboard. She slid it across the island toward me. I made a list, she said. I want everything to be perfect. I looked at the clipboard. The list was typed. It was single-spaced. There were pages of instructions. I picked it up. My hands were trembling slightly. I began to read. Item 1. Polish all-silver cutlery. Item 2. Steam clean the silk curtains. Item 3. Menu preparation. I looked up at her. You want me to do the cooking? Of course, she scoffed. Caterers are so impersonal, and nobody cooks like you. It was a compliment wrapped in a burden. Uncle Robert loves traditional food, she added. I promised him your beef Wellington. For 30 people? I asked. Beef Wellington was incredibly difficult. It required expensive filet mignon. It took hours of preparation. And the lobster bisque to start, she said. And the chocolate soufflé for dessert. I felt dizzy. She was describing a restaurant menu, and she expected one old woman to do it. Vanessa, I said softly, this is a lot of work. I am 68 years old. She rolled her eyes. She looked at David. See? She said to him. I told you she would complain. David looked at his shoes. Mom, he mumbled. Please. It is really important to Vanessa. Her career depends on this investment. Just help us out this one time. This one time. It was never just one time. It was every holiday. It was every birthday. It was every Sunday dinner. I looked back at the list. Item 10, Master Suite Preparation. I stopped reading. What is this? I asked. I pointed to the line. Why do I need to prepare the Master Suite? That is my bedroom. Vanessa sighed. She looked at me like I was slow. Well, obviously Uncle Robert needs the best room. He is a very important man. He cannot stay in the guest room. The mattress in there is too firm. I stared at her. The silence in the kitchen was heavy. You want me to give up my room? Just for the weekend, she said. You can sleep in the sewing room. It has that little cot. The sewing room was a closet. The cot was narrow and uncomfortable. She wanted to banish me to the closet, in my own house. David. I looked at my son. I begged him with my eyes to speak, to defend me, to say this was too much. David shifted his weight. He rubbed the back of his neck. It makes sense, Mom, he said. Uncle Robert is used to luxury. We need to impress him. It is only for 2 nights. My heart broke a little more. He was choosing her again. He always chose her. And one more thing, Vanessa said. She tapped her long fingernail on the list. Item 15. I looked down. Item 15, staff uniform. Staff uniform? I asked. My voice was barely a whisper. Yes, she said briskly. We cannot have you walking around in that. She pointed to my gardening clothes. Or your old sweaters. It looks unprofessional. I bought you a nice black dress. And a white apron. You will look very chic. She pulled a package from her bag. She tossed it onto the counter. It slid across the marble. It stopped right in front of me. It was a maid's uniform. It was a cheap polyester costume. She wanted me to dress up. She wanted me to play the servant. For her family. For her friends. In the house I bought 30 years ago. I am not a maid, Vanessa, I said. My voice was shaking. I am your mother-in-law. I am the owner of this house. Vanessa laughed again. Oh, stop being so dramatic, she said. It is just a theme. The theme is old world charm, comma. You are part of the aesthetic. You should be flattered. I am including you in the vision. She checked her reflection in the toaster. She adjusted a stray hair. Anyway, she said, we have to run. I have a manicure appointment. And David needs a facial. Read the list carefully. I want the silver polish by tomorrow. We will be back on Friday morning to supervise the setup. She turned and walked toward the door. Her heels clicked loudly on the tile. David followed her like a puppy. Bye, Mom, he mumbled. Thanks. And then they were gone. I stood alone in the kitchen. The silence rushed back in, but it did not feel peaceful anymore. It felt cold. I looked at the clipboard. I looked at the black polyester dress. I looked at the master bedroom door, my bedroom, my sanctuary. She wanted to take it all. She wanted to strip me of my dignity. She wanted to parade me around like a prop. I felt a tear roll down my cheek. It was hot and angry. I wiped it away with my dirty hand. I looked at the list one more time. Item 1. Polish all-silver cutlery. I picked up the clipboard. I felt the weight of it in my hands. It was heavy, but it was not as heavy as my heart. I stared at the black dress on the counter. It was still wrapped in clear plastic. I reached out and touched it. The material made a crinkling sound. It felt rough against my fingertips. It was 100% polyester. It was the kind of fabric that did not breathe. It was the kind of fabric that trapped sweat. It smelled faintly of factory chemicals. Vanessa had bought it at a discount costume store. I could see the orange price tag on the back. It said $19.99. That was what my dignity was worth to her. Less than $20. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. The kitchen was quiet again, but the silence felt different now. It was heavy with the ghosts of the past 5 years. You see, it did not start this way. Abuse never starts with a maid's uniform. It starts small. It starts with a favor. I remembered the first time Vanessa asked me to cook. It was 3 months after she married David. They had come over for a Sunday lunch. She had smiled that bright fake smile. Martha, she had said, your lasagna is just to die for, comma. My friends are coming over next week. I tried to make it but I burned it. Could you make just 1 pan for me? Comma, it would save my life. I was flattered. I wanted to be helpful. I wanted her to like me, so I made the lasagna. I made 2 pans actually. I drove them to their apartment. She took them at the door. She did not invite me inside. She just said thanks and closed the door. The next day I saw a photo on social media. It was a picture of my lasagna. The caption said, "Homemade with love by me, comma, recipe coming soon to the blog." She had taken credit for my food. When I asked David about it, he shrugged. "Mom," he said, "it is just Instagram. It is part of her brand. She is building a lifestyle business. You are helping her career." So I let it go. I told myself it did not matter. But then the requests got bigger. Can you iron these tablecloths? Comma, can you polish this silver? Comma, can you watch the dog while we go to Cabo? Comma, can you pay the caterer because we are short on cash? Slowly I stopped being David's mother. I stopped being the owner of the house. I became a resource. I became a tool. I became the invisible maid. And the worst part was seeing David change. My son used to be strong. He used to be kind. He used to stand up for people. But Vanessa wore him down. She criticized his clothes. She criticized his job. She criticized the way he chewed his food. She made him feel small so she could feel big. And to keep the peace, he sacrificed me. I looked at the list on the clipboard again. Item 10, Master Suite Preparation. This was a new low. My bedroom was my private space. It was the room I had shared with my late husband. It was filled with our memories. His watch was still on the nightstand. His favorite book was still on the shelf. The idea of that man sleeping in my bed made me sick. Uncle Robert, I had met him once at the wedding. He was a loud man. He smoked cigars inside the venue. He drank too much scotch. He had looked at me like I was a piece of furniture. And now Vanessa wanted me to give him my sanctuary. I walked out of the kitchen. I needed to move. I needed to do something to burn off this anger. I walked into the living room. It was a beautiful room. It had high ceilings and a stone fireplace. I had decorated it myself 30 years ago. Every cushion was chosen with care, every painting had a story, but now I saw it through Vanessa's eyes. She did not see a home, she saw a backdrop, she saw old-world charm, she saw a set for her social media photos. My phone rang in my pocket. I pulled it out. The screen said, David, My heart softened for a second. Maybe he was calling to apologize. Maybe he had come to his senses. Maybe he was going to tell me to forget the list. I answered the phone. Hello, David, I said. Hey, Mom, he said. His voice sounded rushed. He was driving. I could hear the wind noise in the background. Listen, Vanessa forgot to tell you something. It is about the wine cellar. My grip on the phone tightened. What about the wine cellar? I asked. Well, Uncle Robert is a big wine guy, David said. He loves vintage reds. Vanessa says we need to open the special collection. You know, the bottles Dad saved. I stopped breathing. The special collection. My husband had spent 20 years collecting those bottles. They were rare, they were expensive, but that was not the point. They were his legacy. He had saved them for special occasions, for David's wedding, for a grandchild's birth, for our 50th anniversary. We had opened one bottle at the wedding. Vanessa had complained it tasted dusty. David, I said, my voice was very low. Those were your father's bottles. He saved them for you, for important moments. I know, Mom, David sighed. He sounded annoyed. But this is an important moment. I told you this investment is huge. If Uncle Robert likes the wine, he might sign the check. Think of it as an investment in my future. Dad would have wanted that. Do not speak for your father, I snapped. The anger flared up hot and bright. There was a silence on the line. It was a shocked silence. I never spoke to him like that. Mom, David said. His voice was cold now. You are being really difficult today. Vanessa is under a lot of pressure. She is trying to build something for us. The least you can do is support the family. Just unlock the cellar and make sure the bottles are dusted. We do not want them looking dirty. He hung up. The line went dead. I lowered the phone slowly. My hand was shaking. Not from fear. From rage. Pure cold rage. He wanted me to give up my bedroom. He wanted me to wear a maid's uniform. And now he wanted me to serve his father's prized wine to a stranger who would probably gulp it down without tasting it. Support the family, he had said. But I was not family to them. I was staff. I was an asset to be liquidated. I looked around the living room again, but this time I did not feel sad. I felt clarity, absolute crystal clear clarity. They wanted a perfect host. They wanted a clean house. They wanted the wine. They were going to get exactly what they deserved. I walked back into the kitchen. I picked up the clipboard. I picked up the black polyester dress. I walked to the hallway closet. I opened the door and threw them both inside. I slammed the door shut. Then I went to the pantry. It was fully stocked. I had gone shopping 2 days ago. There were bags of gourmet coffee. There were boxes of imported crackers. There were jars of artichoke hearts. There was everything you needed for a party. I grabbed a large cardboard box from the garage. I began to pack. I packed the coffee. I packed the crackers. I packed the spices. I packed the good olive oil. I worked quickly. My movements were sharp and efficient. I was not stealing. This was my food. I had paid for it with my own money. If Vanessa wanted to host a gala, she could buy her own groceries. I filled 3 boxes. The pantry shelves looked bare. They looked sad. Good. Then I went to the wine cellar. It was cool and dark downstairs. I turned on the light. The bottles were resting in their wooden racks, dusty and dignified. I found the key on my keychain. I locked the heavy oak door. Then I took a tube of superglue from the utility drawer. I squeezed the clear gel into the keyhole. I filled it completely. I waited for it to dry. No key would open that door now. They would need a locksmith. And on a holiday weekend in this town, good luck. I walked back upstairs. I felt lighter with every step. I went to my bedroom, my sanctuary. I pulled my suitcase from the closet. It was a nice leather suitcase. I had not used it in years. I opened it on the bed. I started to pack my clothes, not my gardening clothes, not my old sweaters. I packed my silk blouses. I packed my linen trousers. I packed my favorite evening wrap. I packed the clothes of a woman who respects herself. I was going to the Grand Hotel. I was going to eat room service. I was going to get a massage. I was going to sit by the ocean and drink wine. And I was going to turn off my phone. I looked at the clock. It was 2 in the afternoon. I had plenty of time. But I had one more thing to do. I needed to leave a note. I sat down at my writing desk. I took a piece of thick cream stationery. I took my favorite fountain pen. I thought about writing a long letter. I thought about explaining my feelings. I thought about listing my grievances. But then I remembered Vanessa's face. I remembered David's voice. They did not care about my feelings. They would not read a long letter. So I wrote 5 words, just 5 words. I hope the party is perfect. I signed it Martha. I left the note on the kitchen island, right where the clipboard had been. I walked out the front door. I locked it behind me. I got into my car. I backed out of the driveway. I did not look back at the house. I turned onto the main road. The sun was shining. The radio was playing a cheerful song. And for the first time in 5 years, I felt free. But as I drove toward the coast, I knew this was not the end. It was just the beginning. Because when 30 hungry people arrived at an empty house, when Uncle Robert asked for the wine, when Vanessa realized the maid was gone, the real show would begin, and I had a front row seat. Can you imagine the look on her face? I could, and it made me press down harder on the accelerator. The drive to the coast took 3 hours. I drove with the windows down. The air changed as I got closer to the ocean. It stopped smelling like cut grass and asphalt. It started smelling like salt and freedom. The Grand Hotel rose up from the cliffside like a white palace. It was all marble columns and sparkling glass. I pulled my modest sedan up to the entrance. A young man in a crisp white uniform ran over. He opened my door before I could even unbuckle. "Welcome to the Grand, madam," he said. He offered me his hand to help me out. His grip was firm and respectful. He did not look at my sensible shoes. He did not look at my gray hair. He looked me in the eye. "May I take your bags?" he asked. "Yes, please," I said. "Just the one in the back." He retrieved my leather suitcase. He treated it like it was made of gold. I compared this to David, my own son who watched me carry grocery bags, my own son who let his wife treat me like a pack mule. This stranger showed me more respect in 30 seconds than my family had in 5 years. I walked into the lobby. The air conditioning was cool and smelled of white tea. There was a massive chandelier overhead. It looked like frozen rain. I walked to the reception desk. The woman behind the counter smiled warmly. "Mrs. Higgins," she said, "we have been expecting you. We have prepared the Ocean View Suite as requested, and since it is a special occasion we upgraded you. You are on the top floor." "Thank you," I said. I felt a lump in my throat. I was not used to kindness. I was used to demands. I was used to criticism. I took the key card. I went up in the glass elevator. I watched the ocean expand below me. It was vast and blue and indifferent. It made my problems feel small. I opened the door to my suite. It was bigger than my entire downstairs living area. There was a king-sized bed with white linens. There was a private balcony. There was a bathroom with a soaking tub deep enough to swim in. And there was silence, glorious heavy silence. I ordered room service for dinner. I ordered the lobster thermidor. I ordered a bottle of crisp white wine. I ate on the balcony while the sun went down. I watched the sky turn purple and orange. I thought about my kitchen at home. Right now it would be dark. The note would be sitting on the island. The pantry would be empty. The wine cellar would be glued shut. I took a sip of wine. It tasted like victory. I slept that night without waking up once. I did not dream about dirty dishes. I did not dream about lists. I woke up to the sound of waves crashing. It was Friday morning, the day of the invasion. I looked at the clock. It was 8:30 in the morning. Vanessa and David would be arriving at the house any minute. They wanted to get there early to supervise the setup. I stretched my arms over my head. The sheets felt like silk against my skin. I reached for my phone on the nightstand. I had put it on silent mode. I tapped the screen. The light was blinding in the dim room. I squinted at the notifications. My heart did not race. My hands did not shake. I just watched the numbers. 17 missed calls from David, 22 missed calls from Vanessa, 54 text messages. The first message was from David at 7:45. Mom, where are you? The car is gone. The second was from Vanessa at 7:50. This is not funny, Martha. Come back right now. Then the messages started getting frantic. Where is the food? Comma, why is the pantry empty? Comma, where is the silverware? I chuckled softly. I had hidden the silver in the attic behind the Christmas decorations. She would never find it. She never cleaned anything. I scrolled down. The messages turned from angry to desperate. Mom, please pick up. The caterers are fully booked. Martha, answer the phone. Uncle Robert lands in 4 hours. Comma, we cannot get into the wine cellar. Did you change the lock? I could feel their panic radiating through the screen. It was tangible. It was delicious. For 5 years I had absorbed their stress. I had taken their anxiety and made it my own. Now I was returning it to its rightful owners. I decided to listen to one voicemail, just one, to set the mood for my breakfast. I pressed play on a message from 10 minutes ago. It was Vanessa. She was screaming, "You selfish old woman!" Comma, her voice cracked. "How could you do this to me?" Comma, my reputation is on the line. Comma, we have 30 people coming. Comma, there is nothing here. Comma, not even coffee. Comma, you have ruined my life. Comma, when I find you I am going to. The message cut off. She must have thrown the phone. Or maybe David had taken it from her. Selfish, she called me. I looked at the breakfast menu on the bedside table. I picked up the hotel phone. Room service. A cheerful voice answered. Good morning, I said. I would like the Belgian waffles, please, comma, with extra whipped cream, comma, and a pot of your best coffee, comma, take your time, comma, I am not going anywhere. I hung up. I walked out onto the balcony. The morning sun was bright. I could imagine the scene at my house perfectly. Vanessa would be pacing in the kitchen, her heels clicking like machine gun fire. David would be on the phone frantically calling restaurants. But it was a holiday weekend, everything would be booked, and they had no food, no wine, no servants, just a big empty house and a list of promises they could not keep. I leaned against the railing. The ocean breeze ruffled my hair. I wondered if they had found the glue in the lock yet. I wondered if they realized that money cannot buy you out of every problem, especially when you are broke. That was the other secret I knew, the one I had kept for months. I knew about their finances. I knew about the maxed out credit cards. I knew about the second mortgage they tried to hide. They needed Uncle Robert's investment desperately, and I had just intercepted the ball. My phone buzzed again on the table inside. Another call. This time the screen said Uncle Robert. I froze. Why was he calling me? Comma, he never called me. He did not even have my number, unless David gave it to him. I walked back into the room. I stared at the phone. It vibrated angrily against the wood. If I answered, I would be pulled back in. If I answered, the peace would be broken. But if I did not answer, he might think I was part of the disaster. He might think I was incompetent too. And I had my pride. I was a good hostess. I was a good cook. I was not the reason this party was failing. I picked up the phone. I swiped right. Hello, I said calmly. Martha. His voice was deep and gravelly. It sounded like expensive whiskey and cigars. Yes, Robert, I said. To what do I owe the pleasure? I am at the airport, he barked. My flight landed early. I called Vanessa to tell her we were on our way. She sounded like she was hyperventilating. She said you had a medical emergency. She said you were rushed to the hospital. I raised an eyebrow, so that was their story, a medical emergency, typical. Make me the victim so they look like heroes. Is everything all right? He asked. Are you in the hospital? I looked at my waffles arriving on a silver cart. The waiter lifted the silver dome. Steam rose up. It smelled of vanilla and caramelized sugar. No, Robert, I said slowly. I am not in the hospital. Then where the hell are you? He asked. Vanessa says the house is empty. She says there is no food. She says she cannot find the wine key. What is going on, Martha? I sat down in the plush velvet chair. I took a napkin and placed it on my lap. Well, Robert, I said, it is a long story, but the short version is simple. I am on vacation. Vacation, he shouted. Now? Today. Yes, I said. I decided I needed a break. From what? From being the maid. I said. From being the cook. I said. From being the invisible woman in my own house. There was a silence on the line. I took a bite of my waffle. It was delicious. I do not understand, Robert said. His voice was quieter now. Vanessa said she organized everything. She said she hired a top chef. She said she curated the wine list. She said you were just resting. I laughed. It was a genuine laugh. Vanessa says a lot of things, Robert. But if you want to know the truth, ask her to show you the receipts. Ask her who paid for the groceries last time. Ask her who cooked the beef Wellington she bragged about. And then ask yourself this, if she is such a great lifestyle guru, why can she not host a simple dinner party without her mother-in-law? The silence stretched out. I could hear the airport announcements in the background. I could hear the gears turning in his head. Robert was a shark. He was a businessman. He knew when someone was selling him a bad deal. I see, he said finally. She lied to me. I am afraid so. I said. Well, Robert grunted. This changes things. We are renting a car. We will be there in an hour. I think it is time I saw this lifestyle for myself. Good luck, Robert, I said. You might want to stop for food on the way. I hear the pizza place in town is quite good. I hung up. I poured myself a cup of coffee. I walked back to the balcony. The show was about to get much more interesting, and I did not even have to be there to enjoy it. But life has a funny way of dragging you back into the mess, because as I finished my coffee, my phone buzzed with a text message. It was not from David. It was not from Vanessa. It was from the bank. Alert. Suspicious activity detected on your home equity line of credit. Attempted withdrawal, $50,000. My blood ran cold. I dropped my coffee cup. It shattered on the balcony floor. Vanessa. She had my social security number. She had my files. Desperate people do desperate things. And she was trying to mortgage my house to save her party. The piece was over. I was not just an observer anymore. I was a target. I grabbed my purse. I grabbed my keys. I looked at the ocean one last time. Sorry. I whispered to the waves. I have to go kill a snake. I dialed the bank's fraud department with trembling fingers. I was doing 80 miles per hour on the highway. The phone connected to the car's speakers. Fraud prevention, a robotic voice said. Agent? I shouted. I need an agent now. The hold music was a cheerful classical tune. It mocked my panic. Vanessa had crossed the line. Stealing my food was one thing, invading my privacy was another, but trying to mortgage my home. That was criminal. This is Agent Miller, a man answered. Identity verification, please. I gave him my details. I gave him my password. Sir, I said, there is a pending transaction on my home equity line, $50,000. I did not authorize this. I am the only owner of this property. I heard the clicking of a keyboard. I see the request here, ma'am, he said. It was submitted online 20 minutes ago. It was flagged because the IP address does not match your history. Block it, I said. Block everything. Freeze the accounts. No money goes in or out without my voice on the line. Done, he said. I have locked the profile. Whoever is trying to access it will be locked out immediately. I let out a breath I did not know I was holding. Thank you, I whispered. I hung up. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. I had stopped the theft, but I could not stop the anger. It was a cold, hard knot in my stomach. I needed to get home. I needed to see her face when the screen went black. I drove faster. I prayed that Uncle Robert had taken my advice about the pizza. I needed to beat him there. The drive felt like an eternity, but finally I saw the iron gates of the Willows. They were open. Usually I kept them closed, but Vanessa must have opened them for the caterers who were never coming. I pulled my car up the long driveway. The gravel crunched under my tires. It sounded like bones breaking. The front door was wide open. I could hear shouting from inside. I stepped out of the car. I did not take my suitcase. I did not need clothes. I needed answers. I walked up the stone steps. I crossed the threshold into my foyer. The scene was absolute chaos. David was on a ladder in the hallway. He was trying to hang a plastic chandelier. It looked cheap and tacky against my crystal one. Vanessa was sitting on the floor in the living room. She was surrounded by papers. Her laptop was open in front of her. She was frantically typing. She looked disheveled. Her perfect hair was pulled back in a messy bun. Her makeup was smeared. "It is not working," she screamed. She hit the enter key hard. "Why is it not working? The password is correct. I saw her type it in last Christmas. She was trying to hack me. Right there in my living room." "Vanessa," I said. My voice was low and dangerous. The typing stopped. David almost fell off the ladder. Vanessa's head snapped up. Her eyes went wide. She looked like a deer caught in headlights. But then her expression changed. It shifted from fear to fury. "You!" she shrieked. She scrambled to her feet. She pointed a manicured finger at me. "You did this. You locked the account. I need that money, Martha." I walked further into the room. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. "You tried to steal $50,000 from me. That is a felony, Vanessa. I could call the police right now." "Do it," she yelled. She was hysterical. She was not making sense. "Call them. I don't care. If I don't get that money, it is over anyway." "What is over?" I asked. I looked at the papers scattered on the floor. They were not party plans. They were not menus. They were legal documents. I saw the red stamp on the top page. Final notice. Foreclosure proceedings imminent. I walked over and picked up a paper. Vanessa tried to snatch it from me. "Don't touch that." I slapped her hand away. I read the document. It was addressed to David and Vanessa. It was regarding their luxury downtown apartment, the one they bragged about constantly. They had not paid the mortgage in 6 months. I picked up another paper. Credit card statement. Balance due $42,000. Minimum payment missed. I looked at the charges: Gucci, Prada, Four Seasons Resort, private jet charter. They were drowning, they were completely destitute, and they were living like royalty on credit they did not have. "David," I said. I looked up at my son on the ladder. He was frozen. He looked sick. "Did you know about this?" I asked. He climbed down slowly. He could not look me in the eye. I knew we were tight, he mumbled. Vanessa handles the finances. She said it was just cash flow. She said the investment from Uncle Robert would fix it. Fix it? I laughed. It was a harsh sound. David, you are $500,000 in debt. Uncle Robert is not going to invest. He is a shark. He does due diligence. If he sees these numbers, he will laugh in your face. Vanessa started to cry. But these were not manipulative tears. These were real tears of terror. He can't see them, she sobbed. That is why we needed the party. We needed to dazzle him. If he thinks we are successful, he will sign the check without looking. That was the plan. And you ruined it. She slumped onto the sofa. We were going to use your equity to pay the arrears, she confessed. Just until the investment came through, we were going to pay you back, I swear. I stared at her. She truly believed her own lies. She thought stealing my home equity was a temporary solution. And the party? I asked. How were you going to pay for the party? The credit cards are maxed out, Vanessa sniffled. We weren't, she whispered. I was going to write a check from your account. I found your checkbook in the drawer. I forged your signature for the deposit. My knees felt weak. I sat down in the armchair opposite her. This was not just bad with money, this was pathological. She had built a house of cards on a foundation of fraud, and she had dragged my son into the rubble. Does Uncle Robert know? I asked. Does he know you are broke? Vanessa shook her head violently. No. He thinks we are thriving. He thinks David is a partner at the firm. David is a junior associate, I corrected. He thinks I have a 6-figure income from the blog. You make $0 from the blog, I said. Exactly, she wailed. That is why today has to be perfect. If he finds out the truth, he will cut us off. He is the only family money left. Everyone else knows we are toxic. I looked at the clock on the mantel. It was 11:30. Well, I said, you have a problem, because Robert is on his way, and he knows something is wrong. Vanessa went pale. You spoke to him? She asked. What did you say? I told him to ask for receipts. I told him to ask who really cooks the dinner. I told him to look closer. David groaned. He put his head in his hands. It is over, he said. We are dead. Suddenly the sound of a car horn cut through the air. It was a loud, authoritative honk. We all froze. I walked to the window. A black limousine was pulling up the driveway. It was followed by 2 luxury SUVs. The cavalry had arrived, and the fort was in ruins. He is here, I said. I turned back to them. You have 2 choices. 1. You go out there and you tell him the truth. You beg for forgiveness. You ask for financial counseling. 2. You try to keep lying, and I will stand right next to you, and every time you tell a lie, I will pull out one of these papers. I held up the foreclosure notice. Vanessa looked at the paper. She looked at the window. She looked at me. Her eyes narrowed. The fear was gone. The manipulation was back. I choose option 3, she hissed. She stood up. She wiped her face. She smoothed her dress. Option 3 is that you are senile. You are confused. You are having an episode. And these papers. She snatched the foreclosure notice from my hand before I could react. She ripped it in half. These are just your delusions. David, she snapped. Get your mother out of here. Lock her in the bedroom if you have to. I will handle Robert. She turned and walked toward the front door. She put on her fake smile like a mask. Uncle Robert, she called out sweetly. Welcome to the Willows. I stood there stunned. She was going to double down. She was going to fight to the bitter end. David looked at me. He looked at the ripped paper on the floor. Mom, he whispered. Please, just go upstairs. I looked at my son. I felt a profound sadness. He was lost, but I was not. No, David, I said calmly. I stepped over the torn paper. I am not going upstairs. I am going to greet my guests, and I think I will start by offering them a drink from the wine cellar you cannot open. I walked past him. I followed Vanessa out the door. The war was not over. It had just moved to the front lawn, and I was ready for battle. I stepped onto the porch. The sun was high and bright. It was the kind of light that exposed everything. It exposed the peeling paint on the garden fence that David promised to fix. It exposed the cheap plastic of the chandelier hanging in the foyer, and it was about to expose Vanessa. Uncle Robert was stepping out of the limousine. He was a mountain of a man. He wore a navy blue suit that probably cost more than my car. He had a thick white beard and eyes like polished steel. He looked exactly like a man who eats weak business partners for breakfast. Behind him, the entourage poured out of the SUVs. There were women in cocktail dresses. There were men in linen suits. They looked hungry. They looked expectant. Vanessa practically flew down the stairs. "Uncle Robert!" she cried. She threw her arms around him. She buried her face in his expensive suit. "I am so glad you are here," she added. "It has been such a difficult morning," she continued. She pulled back and wiped a fake tear from her eye. "Martha is." She lowered her voice to a stage whisper, but made sure everyone could hear. "She is having one of her episodes. She is very confused. She thinks she is on vacation. She even thinks she works for the bank," she said. "It is heartbreaking." The guests murmured sympathetically. "Poor dear." A woman in a red hat said, "Dementia is so cruel." I stood at the top of the stairs. I clasped my hands in front of me. I stood tall. I did not look confused. I looked like the lady of the manor. "Hello, Robert," I said clearly. My voice carried over the murmurs. "Welcome to the Willows." Vanessa froze. She spun around. Her eyes widened with panic. She had expected me to be cowering in my room or screaming like a banshee. Instead, I was the picture of sanity. Robert looked up at me. He squinted against the sun. He looked at Vanessa. Then he looked back at me. "Martha," he rumbled. "You look..." "Well," I replied. "I am excellent, Robert, although I was enjoying my breakfast at the Grand Hotel before I was interrupted." Vanessa laughed nervously. "See?" she said to the crowd. "She thinks she was at a hotel. She has been upstairs all morning. Come inside, everyone. Come inside," she urged. She ushered them up the stairs. She tried to body block me as she passed. "Go to your room," she hissed in my ear. "Do not embarrass me." I smiled at her. "After you, dear." We all flowed into the foyer. The house was cool, but it was the wrong kind of cool. It was not the cool of a house filled with fresh flowers and simmering sauces. It was the stagnant cool of an empty museum. The 30 guests crowded into the hallway. They looked around. They saw the plastic chandelier. They saw the dust on the side tables that Vanessa had forgotten to wipe. They saw the lack of servers with champagne trays. "Where is the staff?" the woman in the red hat asked. "I am dying for a mimosa." Vanessa clapped her hands. "David," she shouted, "get the drinks. The staff is stuck in traffic," she added. "But we have a wonderful vintage red to start. From the private collection." She looked at David. She gave him a look that could cut glass. "Go." Now, David looked like he was walking to the gallows. He disappeared toward the kitchen. "Please," Vanessa said, gesturing to the living room. "Make yourselves comfortable. The appetizers will be out shortly." The guests shuffled into the living room. I followed them. I sat in my favorite armchair by the fireplace. Vanessa glared at me. She wanted me gone, but she couldn't drag me out without breaking her concerned niece character. Robert sat on the sofa opposite me. He did not relax. He sat on the edge of the cushion. He looked at me intently. "So, Martha," he said, "Vanessa tells us you have been struggling with your memory." I smoothed my skirt. "My memory is quite sharp, Robert," I said. "For instance, I remember that today is July the 4th. I remember that copper is trading at $3.80, and I remember that a foreclosure notice is usually sent after 6 months of missed payments. The room went quiet. Vanessa dropped a coaster. She is rambling, she shrieked. She reads the news and gets confused. She thinks she is a stockbroker today. Robert's eyes narrowed. He did not look at Vanessa. He kept his eyes on me. Foreclosure? He asked. Just a word I read in the paper, I said innocently. You know how depressing the news is these days. Just then David came back. He was empty-handed. He was sweating profusely. He said. Vanessa, can I speak to you? In the kitchen. Just give them the wine, David, she snapped. Uncle Robert is thirsty. I can't, David squeaked. The door? It's stuck? Stuck? Robert asked. What do you mean stuck? The key won't go in, David said. It is like, blocked. Vanessa turned to me. Her face was purple. You, she accused. You did something. You hid the key. She looked at the guests. She hides things, she explained. Like a squirrel. It is part of her condition. She probably swallowed the key. I laughed softly. I assure you, Vanessa, I did not swallow a brass key, and I did not hide it. I simply secured my property. Before I left for the vacation you claim I did not take. Property? Vanessa scoffed. It is family wine. It belongs to all of us. Actually, I said, it belonged to my husband, and since he passed, it belongs to the estate, which I control, and considering I am the only one who pays the mortgage on this house, I think I have the right to lock a door. Robert stood up. He was tall, very tall. David, he barked, show me this door. Uncle Robert, no. Vanessa cried. It is dusty down there. Stay here and relax. I will get a locksmith. Show me the door, Robert repeated. He did not shout. He did not have to. David nodded meekly. He led the way. Robert followed. Vanessa followed Robert. And the 30 guests, sensing drama, followed Vanessa. It was a parade of curiosity. I brought up the rear. We went down the narrow stairs to the cellar. David pointed to the heavy oak door. See, he said, the keyhole, it is filled with something. Robert leaned in. He took a gold pen from his pocket. He poked the keyhole. It is glue, he said. Super glue. He stood up and looked at Vanessa. Who glued the door shut? She did. Vanessa pointed at me. She is sabotaging us. She is spiteful. Because we didn't let her cook. Because she is sick. Wait, Robert said. He held up a hand. You didn't let her cook? I thought you said she was too frail to cook. I thought you said you hired a Michelin star chef. Vanessa stumbled. I did. He is in the kitchen right now, preparing the feast. I just meant. She wanted to help and we said no. So she glued the door in a rage. I stepped forward. The basement light was dim, but my voice was bright. Vanessa, I said. If there is a Michelin star chef in the kitchen, why does the house smell like stale air? Why is there no sound of chopping? Why is there no steam? The guests sniffed the air. I was right. There was no smell of roasting meat, no smell of garlic, no smell of bread. He is doing cold prep. Vanessa lied. Salads. Sashimi. It is a silent kitchen. Very modern. Robert looked at the glued lock. Then he looked at his watch. I am hungry, he said. I want to meet this chef. I want to see the menu. Let's go to the kitchen. Vanessa blocked the stairs. She spread her arms wide. No, she said. He hates to be disturbed. He is an artist. If we go in there, he might quit. Let's just go back to the living room. I will serve some crackers. Crackers? The woman in the red hat asked. I thought we were having lobster bisque. We are. Vanessa shrieked. Later. Just give him time. Robert moved Vanessa aside gently but firmly. I am paying for this investment, Vanessa, he said. If you can afford a chef who demands total privacy, then you can afford to show him off. He walked up the stairs. The crowd followed him. Vanessa looked at me. Her eyes were wild. Do something, she hissed. Tell them you sent him away. Tell them you fired him. Take the blame. Please, Martha. If you do this, I will. I will let you stay in the master bedroom. I looked at her. She was still bargaining. She still thought she held the cards. I already have a bedroom, Vanessa, I said, at the Grand Hotel. And the room service there is excellent. I walked past her. I climbed the stairs. I walked into the kitchen. Robert was already there. He was standing in the middle of the room. The guests were crowded in the doorway. The kitchen was pristine. The counters were empty. The stove was cold. The sink was dry. There was no chef. There was no food. There was not even a crumb. Robert opened the refrigerator. He stared inside for a long moment. Then he stepped back so everyone could see. It was empty, except for a single jar of pickles and a half-empty bottle of ketchup. The silence was deafening. 30 people stared at the empty fridge. Vanessa burst into the room. She was panting. He quit, she yelled. Just now. He climbed out the window. He stole the food. Can you believe it? The criminality. We have to call the police. She ran to the window and pointed at the garden. He went that way. With the lobsters. And the beef. It was pathetic. It was the lie of a child who had broken a vase. Robert closed the refrigerator door. It made a heavy thud. He turned to look at Vanessa. His face was not angry. It was disappointed, which is much worse. Vanessa, he said softly, there are no footprints in the garden. There are no dirty pans in the sink. There is no trash in the bin. Nobody cooked here. Nobody shopped here. Nobody planned anything here. He looked at me. Martha, he said, is there any food in this house? I walked to the pantry door. I opened it. It was bare, except for 3 boxes I had packed earlier. The boxes Vanessa had not noticed in her panic. No, Robert, I said. I packed my groceries when I left, because I knew this would happen. I knew there was no chef. I knew there was no money. And I knew that if I left food here, she would claim she cooked it, just like she has done for 5 years. Vanessa sobbed. She is lying. She is trying to ruin me. She is jealous of my youth. Robert held up a hand to silence her. He reached into his pocket. He pulled out his phone. I am going to make a call, he said, to my auditor, because if there is no chef, and there is no food, and the house is in foreclosure, then I have some very serious questions about the $10,000 I sent you last month for the deposit. Vanessa stopped crying. She went deadly silent. The color drained from her face. She looked at David. David was leaning against the counter. He looked like he was going to vomit. 10,000. David whispered. You got 10,000? You told me Uncle Robert said no. You told me we had to use Mom's credit, the room gasped. It was a collective intake of breath. The guests looked from Vanessa to David to Robert. This was better than a soap opera. This was a public execution, and I was the executioner. Well, I said cheerfully, since there is no lunch, and since we are all here, Robert, would you like to see the rest of the lifestyle you are investing in? I believe there is a stack of unopened mail in the study, mostly collection notices. I am sure they would make for fascinating reading. Vanessa lunged. She did not lunge at me. She lunged at the table. She grabbed a steak knife. She didn't point it at anyone. She pointed it at herself. Stop it, she screamed. Stop looking at me. I did it for us. I did it for the family image. You don't understand the pressure. The pressure to be perfect. The pressure to be me. She was unraveling, right in front of 30 people. Her mask had not just slipped, it had shattered, and underneath, there was nothing but a scared, greedy little girl. Put the knife down, Vanessa, Robert said. His voice was steel. This show is over, and so is my patience. He looked at the guests. I apologize, everyone. It seems we have been invited to a fraud. Please return to the cars. I will treat you all to lunch at the country club. He looked at me. Martha, will you join us? We have a lot to discuss. I looked at Vanessa. She was shaking. She had dropped the knife. She was sobbing on the floor. David was trying to touch her shoulder. She slapped him away. I looked at my kitchen. It was still my kitchen, but the air felt cleaner already. I would love to, Robert, I said. But first, I have one more thing to show you, because you asked about the business plan, and I think you should see the office, or as I call it, the room where she keeps the fake handbags. I walked toward the hallway. Robert followed. The guests followed, and Vanessa screamed, a long primal scream of defeat, but nobody turned back, because the truth is addictive, and we were just getting to the good part. I walked down the hallway. My heels made a soft thud on the carpet. 30 people followed me in silence. It was like a funeral procession, but the body in the casket was Vanessa's reputation. We stopped in front of the double doors at the end of the hall. This used to be the library. My husband had spent hours here reading history books. It smelled of old paper and pipe tobacco, but 2 years ago Vanessa had claimed it. She said she needed a headquarters, she said she needed a space for her empire, she had painted the mahogany doors white, she had installed a keypad lock, she told everyone it was a secure facility, she said she kept prototypes there. She said it contained trade secrets worth millions. I stood in front of the keypad. She told you this room was restricted, I said. I turned to Robert. She told you it contained the future of luxury retail, Robert nodded slowly. She said her inventory was worth $200,000, he said. She sent me a spreadsheet, it listed Italian leather, it listed French silk, it listed conflict-free diamonds, I smiled. Well, Robert, I said. Let us see these diamonds, I did not know the code. Vanessa changed it every week. But I knew something else. I knew that Vanessa was cheap. She had bought the keypad online for $30, and she had installed it herself with a screwdriver. I reached up to the top of the door frame. I felt for the emergency release latch. It was a small metal pin. I pressed it, the lock beeped twice, the mechanism clicked open. Security is only as good as the installer, I said. I pushed the doors open. The smell hit us first. It did not smell like Italian leather. It did not smell like French silk. It smelled like vinyl. It smelled like industrial glue. It smelled like a tire factory on a hot day. I stepped inside and flipped the light switch. The room was floor-to-ceiling shelves, and every shelf was packed. There were hundreds of handbags. There were stacks of sunglasses. There were boxes of jewelry. From a distance it looked impressive. It looked like a boutique. The colors were bright. The logos were gold and shiny. The guests gasped, "Oh my!" The woman in the red hat said, "Look at that collection, maybe she really is successful." Robert walked into the room. He walked with a heavy, determined step. He approached a shelf of designer bags. He picked one up. It was a bright red tote. It had a famous logo stamped on the front. He held it up to the light. He squeezed the handle. He scratched the surface with his fingernail. A flake of red material peeled off. Underneath it was gray cardboard. "Plastic," Robert said. His voice was disgusted. "It is pressed plastic, He tossed the bag on the floor. He picked up a pair of sunglasses. He bent the frame slightly. Snap, they broke in half in his hands. "Cheap acrylic," he said. He walked to a box of silk scarves. He rubbed the fabric between his fingers. "Polyester," he growled. "Low-grade polyester, He turned to the crowd. He held up a scarf. "This is the Empire," he announced. "This is the investment, She buys these for $2 a piece from overseas, and she tells us they are worth hundreds, She tells us she is a designer, She is a reseller of junk." I walked over to the desk in the corner. It was buried under piles of paper. I picked up a stack of shipping invoices. "Here are the receipts, Robert," I said. I handed them to him. He adjusted his glasses. He read the top invoice, 500 units of luxury Toda. He read, "Total cost $700, Shipping from a warehouse in the middle of nowhere, comma. He crumpled the paper in his fist. She asked me for $50,000 for materials, he said. She said. She was sourcing leather from Tuscany, comma. She spent the money on this trash, comma, and she pocketed the difference, comma, or used it to pay her credit cards, I added, or to buy the shoes she is wearing right now. The guests were walking around the room now. They were touching things. They were laughing. The illusion was completely gone. They were not at a gala. They were at a flea market. Look at this. A man in a linen suit said. He held up a necklace. The gold is painting off on my finger, comma. My neck is itching just looking at it. His wife said. Let's get out of here, comma. This place is a joke. Robert stood in the middle of the room. He looked old suddenly. He looked tired. He had been played by his own niece. He looked at me. Martha, he said, I owe you an apology, comma, a big one, comma. You tried to warn us, comma. You sent the emails, comma. And we thought you were just a meddling mother-in-law, comma. We thought you were jealous, comma. We were fools, comma. You were not fools, Robert. I said gently. You were family, comma. You wanted to believe in her, comma. That is what families do, comma. But she used that against you, comma. She weaponized your love, comma. Just like she weaponized my kindness, comma. Robert nodded. He straightened his tie. The steel came back into his eyes. He was done being the victim. Everyone, he boomed. The show is over, comma. Please make your way to the cars, comma. I will not have you spend another minute in this house of lies, comma. The guests did not need to be told twice. They filed out of the room. They left the fake bags and the broken sunglasses. They left the smell of vinyl behind. I heard the front door opening and closing. I heard the engine starting. I heard the tires crunching on the gravel. One by one the cars drove away. The noise faded. The silence returned. But it was not a peaceful silence. It was the silence of a battlefield after the fighting stops. Robert and I walked back to the kitchen. The walk felt long. We found David and Vanessa exactly where we left them. Vanessa was sitting at the kitchen table. Her head was in her hands. Her shoulders were shaking. David was standing by the window. He was watching the cars leave. He turned around as we entered. His face was gray. They are gone, he whispered. Everyone is gone. Uncle Robert. Vanessa looked up. Her face was a mess of mascara and tears. Let me explain, comma. Those bags. They were just samples, comma. Prototypes, comma. I was going to upgrade the materials, comma. I just needed the capital. Stop, Robert said. He held up a hand. It was a flat absolute gesture. Do not speak, comma. Do not lie, comma. I saw the invoices, Vanessa, comma. I saw the dates, comma. You have been doing this for 2 years, comma. You took my money, comma. You took your cousin's money, comma. And you bought garbage, comma. That is fraud, comma. That is theft, comma. Vanessa opened her mouth to argue, but Robert cut her off. I could go to the police, he said. I could have you arrested right now, comma. For the money you stole from me, comma. For the fraud you committed against the bank, comma. For the checks you forged in Martha's name, comma. Vanessa gasped. She looked at me with pure hatred. You told him, she spat. You witch, comma. Robert found the evidence himself, I said calmly. I just opened the door. Robert walked closer to the table. He placed his hands flat on the surface. He leaned in until his face was inches from Vanessa's. I am not going to the police, he said. Not yet, comma. Because you are family, comma. And because I do not want to drag our name through the mud, comma. But hear me clearly, comma. The bank of Uncle Robert is closed, comma. Forever, comma. You will not get another dime, comma. Not for your business, comma. Not for your rent, comma. Not for a cup of coffee, comma. You are on your own, comma. He stood up. Straight, he looked at David. And you, he said, you stood by and watched, comma. You let her steal from your mother, comma. You let her lie to me, comma. You are just as guilty, comma. Uncle Robert, please, David begged. I didn't know the extent of it, comma. I swear, ignorance is not a defense, David, Robert said. It is a choice, you chose to look away, and now you have to look at the mess you made, Robert turned to me. Martha, he said, I am leaving now, I have to make some calls, I have to tell the rest of the family what happened here, It is going to be a very difficult Christmas, I imagine so, I said. Are you sure you won't stay for tea, I could boil some water, That is all we have, he smiled weakly. No thank you, I have lost my appetite, But Martha, if you need anything, legal help, financial help, anything at all, you call me directly, I will answer, Thank you, Robert, I said. He took my hand, he squeezed it gently, then he walked out the back door. He did not look back at his niece. He got into his limousine, the driver closed the door, the long black car drove away, and then there were three, me, my son, and the woman who had tried to destroy me. The kitchen was very quiet. The refrigerator hummed, a fly buzzed against the window pane. Vanessa wiped her face with the back of her hand. She looked around the empty kitchen. She looked at the foreclosure notice still lying on the floor. She looked at me, and for the first time the arrogance was gone, there was only fear. What do we do now? She whispered. We have no money, we have no apartment, we have nowhere to go, She looked at David. David, do something, fix this, David looked at me, his eyes were pleading. Mom, he said, you heard Uncle Robert, we are broke, we are going to lose the apartment next week, we can't go back there, he took a step toward me. Can we stay here? Just for a while? Until we get back on our feet? Please, Mom, we are family, I looked at my son. I looked at the man who had watched his wife treat me like a servant for 5 years. I looked at the woman who had glued my wine cellar shut. I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It was not anger anymore. It was something colder. It was indifference. I walked over to the island. I picked up the note I had left for them yesterday. I hope the party is perfect. I crumpled it up. I dropped it in the trash can. No, I said. The word hung in the air. Simple, heavy, final. What? David blinked. No. I repeated. You cannot stay here, But Mom, he stammered. Where will we go? We will be homeless, I am sure you will figure it out, I said. You are a functional adult, David, and Vanessa is a lifestyle expert, I am sure she can design a very chic cardboard box, Vanessa made a sound like a wounded animal. You can't be serious, she screamed. This is your house. You have empty rooms. I do, I said, and I intend to enjoy them, alone, or with guests who do not steal from me, I pointed to the door. You have 1 hour, pack your things, take your fake bags, take your plastic chandelier, and get out of my house, If you are still here at 2 o'clock, I will call the police, and unlike Robert, I will press charges, for the credit card fraud, and the attempted mortgage theft, try me, I stared them down. I did not blink. I was not the maid anymore. I was the landlord, and the eviction had just begun. David looked at Vanessa. Vanessa looked at the floor. They knew I meant it. They turned and walked slowly out of the kitchen. I heard their footsteps on the stairs, dragging, heavy, defeated. I walked to the sink. I filled the kettle with water. I put it on the stove. I waited for the whistle. It was the sweetest sound I had heard in years. But I knew it wasn't over yet, because desperate people are dangerous. And Vanessa had one card left to play. I just didn't know what it was yet. But I would be ready. I poured my tea. I walked to the window, and I watched the clock. The kitchen clock ticked loudly, 1:05. They had 55 minutes left. I sat at the island with my tea, the steam curled up in thin white ribbons. Above me I could hear the sounds of a retreat. It was not a quiet retreat. It was the sound of drawers being ripped open. It was the sound of heavy items hitting the floor. It was the sound of muffled screaming. Vanessa was not packing with grace. She was packing with fury. I heard glass shatter, probably a perfume bottle, thrown against the wall. I did not flinch. I took a sip of tea, Earl Grey. It tasted calm. At 1:45 the thumping moved to the stairs. David appeared first. He was carrying 3 suitcases. He was sweating. He looked like a man serving a prison sentence. He did not look at me. He dragged the bags to the front door. He dropped them with a heavy thud. Then he went back upstairs. Vanessa came down next. She was wearing sweatpants and a designer hoodie. The hoodie was probably one of the fakes from her inventory, she was carrying a large tote bag. She hugged it close to her chest. Her eyes were red and swollen, but they were not sad, they were venomous. She stopped at the bottom of the stairs. She looked at me sitting on my stool. Are you happy? She spat. You destroyed your own son, just to prove a point, I set my cup down on the saucer. I did not destroy him, Vanessa, I said. I just stopped enabling his destruction, There is a difference, David came down with the last 2 boxes. That is everything, he muttered. Let's go, He reached for the door handle. Wait, Vanessa said. She planted her feet. She looked at me with a cold smile. This was the card, the final play. We are not leaving, she announced. David froze. Vanessa, what are you doing? We are not leaving, she repeated. She looked at me. I know my rights, Martha, We have stayed here for more than 14 days in the last year, We have clothes here, We have mail sent here, That makes us residents, You cannot kick us out without 30 days notice, It is the law, It is called tenant rights, She crossed her arms. So we are staying, And if you try to force us out, I will sue you for illegal eviction, David looked terrified. Vanessa, stop, he whispered. She is serious, So am I, she yelled. We have nowhere to go, David. We are staying right here. I looked at her smug expression. She thought she had found a loophole. She thought she could bully me with legal terms she read on a blog. I stood up slowly. I picked up my phone from the counter. That is an interesting theory, Vanessa, I said. But there is a small problem, To be a tenant you have to pay rent, Or have a lease, You have neither, But, I added, if you want to involve the law, let us involve the law, I unlocked my phone. I held it up so she could see the screen. I had a number pre-dialed. It was not the police, it was not a lawyer. It was the fraud division at the bank. I have Agent Miller on speed dial, I said. Remember him? He is the one who blocked your $50,000 theft this morning, He told me that attempting to access a secured line of credit is a federal crime, He asked if I wanted to file an official report, I told him I would wait, But if you are still in my hallway in 5 minutes, I will press the call button, And then the police will come, Not to evict you, but to arrest you for felony fraud, So you choose, tenant rights, or prison. Vanessa stared at the phone. Her face went white. She knew I was not bluffing. She knew the game was over. You wouldn't, she whispered. You wouldn't send the mother of your future grandchildren to jail, I raised an eyebrow. Future grandchildren? 5 minutes ago I was a witch, Now I am a grandmother? Make up your mind, Vanessa, You have 3 minutes left, She made a noise in her throat. It was a growl of pure frustration. Fine, she screamed. We are leaving. I hate this house anyway. She spun around toward the door. Come on, David. Let's get out of this hellhole. She grabbed the handle. One moment, I said. My voice was sharp, like a whip crack. They both stopped. What now? Vanessa snapped. The bag, I said. I pointed to the large tote bag she was clutching, the one she was holding very tightly. What about it? Open it, I said. Excuse me. It is my personal purse. You have no right. I have every right, I said. You are leaving my house after stealing my food and trying to steal my money, comma. I want to make sure you are not taking anything else, comma. Open the bag. Vanessa clutched it tighter. No, she said. David, tell her. David looked at the bag. He looked at Vanessa's white knuckles. He realized something. Vanessa, he asked, what is in the bag? Nothing, she shrieked. Just my makeup. Open it, David said. His voice was tired. Just open it so we can leave. Vanessa glared at him. She glared at me. Then she unzipped the bag. She turned it upside down. She shook it. Items fell onto the hardwood floor. Clatter. Clank. Thud. It was not makeup. First came the silver candlesticks, the ones from the dining room mantel. Then came a small jade statue, my favorite piece. Then came a handful of silver spoons, my grandmother's antique spoons. And finally, a jewelry box, my jewelry box, the one from my bedroom dresser. The silence in the hallway was absolute. We all stared at the pile of stolen goods. David looked at the floor. He looked like he had been punched in the gut. Vanessa, he whispered. You stole Mom's jewelry? I didn't steal it, she cried. I was borrowing it. For the shop. To sell. We need money, David. We need cash to get a hotel tonight. I did it for us, comma. She fell to her knees. She started scrambling to pick up the items. I am just taking what we are owed, she sobbed. She has so much. And we have nothing. It is not fair, comma. I walked over to her. I stood over her while she crawled on the floor. I did not feel angry. I felt pity, deep disgusted pity. Leave it, I said. Leave it all. But, leave it, I shouted. It was the first time I had raised my voice all day. Vanessa flinched. She dropped the jade statue. She stood up slowly. She looked small. She looked defeated. She looked like a common thief. Get out, I said. Get out of my house. And do not ever come back. She looked at David. She was waiting for him to defend her, to say it was a misunderstanding. But David was staring at the silver spoons on the floor. He was realizing who he had married, but he was too weak to leave her. He picked up the last suitcase. Let's go, Vanessa, he said quietly. He opened the door. The heat of the afternoon rushed in. Vanessa walked out first. She held her head high, trying to salvage some shred of dignity. But she had none left. David paused in the doorway. He looked back at me. His eyes were filled with tears. Mom, he said. Don't, I said. Just go, David, fix your life. And then maybe we can talk. But not today, comma, he nodded. He stepped out. He closed the door softly behind him. Click, the lock engaged. I stood in the hallway. I was alone. I looked at the pile of silver on the floor. I looked at the scratches on the wood where the suitcases had been dragged. I looked at the silence. It was heavy, it was profound, but it was mine. I walked to the door. I turned the deadbolt. Then I engaged the security chain. Then I walked to the kitchen. I picked up the phone. I dialed the locksmith. Hello, I said. This is Mrs. Higgins. I have an emergency. I need all the exterior locks changed. Yes, today, immediately. Price is no object. I hung up. I walked back to the hallway. I knelt down, my knees popped. I began to pick up the spoons, one by one. I polished them with the hem of my apron. I put the jade statue back on the table. I put the candlesticks back on the mantel. I took the jewelry box back to my room. I put everything back where it belonged. Except for my family, they were gone. And as I sat on my bed, in the quiet house, I realized something. I was not sad. I was relieved. The tumor had been removed. The surgery was painful, but the patient was going to survive. I lay back on my pillows. I closed my eyes. I listened to the sound of the house settling. It sounded like a sigh, a long, deep sigh of relief. But then, just as I was drifting off, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I ignored it. It buzzed again and again and again. It was persistent. I picked it up. It was a text message from a number I did not recognize. I opened it. There was an image attached. It was a screenshot of a social media post, posted 5 minutes ago, by Vanessa. It was a picture of her crying in her car, with a bruise on her arm, a bruise I had never seen before. And the caption read, "My mother-in-law just physically attacked me and threw us on the street. We are homeless and injured. Please send help. She is dangerous." I stared at the screen. She was not done. She had declared war. And she had just fired a missile. I sat up. The piece was over. I looked at the bruise in the photo again. It looked like makeup, cheap purple eyeshadow. I zoomed in. Yes, I could see the glitter particles. I smiled, a cold hard smile. She wanted a public battle? She wanted to play the victim on the internet? Fine. I knew something she didn't. I had security cameras in the hallway, in the kitchen, and on the porch. I had installed them last year when packages started going missing. Vanessa didn't know they existed. I opened the security app on my phone. I found the clip from 10 minutes ago. The clip of her throwing the perfume, the clip of her stealing the silver, the clip of her walking out the door without a scratch on her. I pressed download, she wanted to tell a story. I was about to release the director's cut. Chapter 8. I whispered to the empty room. The premiere. I sat on the edge of my bed. The room was dark. Only the blue light of my phone illuminated my face. I watched Vanessa's post. It had been up for 12 minutes. It already had 300 likes. The comments were rolling in like a tide of sewage. "Oh my God, V. Are you okay? Call the police immediately. I always knew that old woman was crazy. Elder abuse goes both ways. Stay strong." I read them one by one. Each exclamation point was a tiny stab. Each angry emoji was a digital stone thrown at my head. She was winning. She was painting a picture of me as a monster, a violent, unhinged, abusive monster, and people believed her, because people love a victim, especially a young, pretty victim in a designer hoodie. I looked at the photo again. The purple bruise on her arm was artfully done. She must have had the eyeshadow palette in her pocket. She had applied it in the car. Then she had taken the selfie with the perfect lighting, tears glistening, lip trembling. It was a performance worthy of an Oscar. But she had forgotten the most important rule of modern warfare. The camera never lies. I minimized Instagram. I opened the security app. Nest Home, it said. I tapped on Library. I scrolled back 20 minutes. There it was, the timestamp, 1:55 p.m., the camera angle, high definition, wide angle. From the top of the staircase, I pressed play. On the small screen I watched the scene replay. I saw Vanessa clutching the bag. I heard the audio, crisp and clear. "It is my personal purse. You have no right." I saw myself standing calmly. My hands were clasped. I never touched her. I never raised a hand. Then came the best part. I saw her unzip the bag. I saw her shake it. I saw the silver spoons hit the floor. I saw the jade statue bounce. I saw the undeniable proof of theft. And then the exit timestamp, 2:02 p.m. I switched to the porch cam. I saw the front door open. I saw Vanessa walk out. She was wearing a tank top under her hoodie. Her arms were bare. Her skin was flawless. There was no bruise. There was no mark. She stormed down the steps. She got into the passenger seat of the car. She pulled down the sun visor mirror. And there, in 4K resolution, I watched her. I watched her pull a small compact from her pocket. I watched her dab something purple on her arm. I watched her blend it with her finger. Then I watched her hold up the phone for the selfie. Captured. Gotcha. I sat back. I felt a cold thrill of satisfaction. It was better than the lobster thermidor. It was better than the ocean view. It was the feeling of holding a nuclear launch code. But I needed a delivery system. I didn't have followers. My account was private. If I posted it, nobody would see it. I needed to put it where the fire was burning. I went back to Vanessa's post. It now had 500 likes. She was trending locally. I tapped the share button. I copied the link. Then I opened my email. I composed a new message. Subject: the truth about today. I attached 3 video files. 1. The theft. 2. The exit, no bruise. 3. The makeup application. I added a short note. Dear family and friends, it has come to my attention that Vanessa is claiming I attacked her. Please find attached the security footage from my home from 30 minutes ago. It clearly shows her stealing my silver, leaving unharmed, and applying makeup to fake an injury in my driveway. Feel free to share. Sincerely, Martha. I added the recipients. I added Uncle Robert. I added Cousin Evelyn. I added Agent Miller from the bank just for fun, and then I did something petty. I added the local Community Watch group email list, the one Vanessa used to brag about being a member, the one with 5,000 local members. I took a deep breath. My finger hovered over the send button. Once I did this, there was no going back. This wasn't just a defense, this was a demolition. This would end her career, this would end her social standing. This would make her a pariah. I thought about the 5 years. I thought about the burnt lasagna she took credit for. I thought about the servant uniform she bought me. I thought about the glue in the lock. I thought about the stolen spoons. I pressed send, whoosh, the email flew into the ether. I put the phone down on the nightstand. I stood up and walked to the window. The sun was setting over the garden. The shadows were long. It was quiet. But out there, in the digital world, a bomb was detonating. I went downstairs to the kitchen. I decided to make myself a real dinner. I found a box of pasta in the back of a cupboard. I found a jar of pesto I had made last summer. I boiled water. I chopped garlic. For the first time in years, I cooked just for me. I hummed a little tune. 10 minutes later, my phone started buzzing. It buzzed once, then twice, then it didn't stop. It was a continuous vibration. It was rattling the nightstand upstairs. I ignored it. I ate my pasta. It was delicious. When I finished, I washed my plate. I dried it. I put it away. Then, and only then, did I go back upstairs. I picked up the phone. It was hot to the touch. 70 notifications. I opened the Community Watch group first. The thread was exploding. Did you see the video? OMG. She stole the spoons. I can't believe it. Look at her putting on the makeup. That is psychotic. I always knew she was fake. Remember the gala last year? The tide had turned. It hadn't just turned, it had crashed into a seawall. I went to Vanessa's Instagram page. She had deleted the photo, but the comments on her other photos were still there. Liar. Thief. Where are the spoons, Vanessa? Applying makeup in the car? Really? She had turned off comments, then the screen refreshed. User not found. She had deactivated her account. The influencer was gone. She had erased herself. My phone rang. It was Uncle Robert. I answered on the first ring. Hello, Robert. Martha, he said. His voice sounded tired, but also impressed. I just saw the email. I am sorry you had to see that, I said. It is not dignified. But I could not let her lie about violence. Dignified. Robert snorted. It was brilliant. I forwarded it to the family chat. Everyone has seen it. Even her mother. What did she say? I asked. She is mortified. She said she is going to call Vanessa and tell her to seek professional help. Psychiatric help. I think that is a good idea, I said. And Martha, Robert continued, about the silver. I recognized those spoons. Those were Great Aunt Clara's spoons. They are. That is a felony theft, Martha. On video. You have the right to press charges. I know, I said. I told her I would if she didn't leave. But she left. So I am content. You are too kind, Robert said. If she had stolen from me, she would be in a cell tonight. But listen. I called to tell you something else. I canceled the checks. All of them. And I called Marco. He is the real estate cousin. He did some digging on that apartment of theirs. And they are not just being foreclosed on. They are being evicted for unauthorized subletting. Apparently, they were trying to rent out the spare room on Airbnb against the lease rules. To pay for the Gucci bags, I assume. It is a mess, Martha. A total mess. Where are they now? I asked. I couldn't help it. I was still a mother. I don't know, Robert said. And frankly, I don't care. They made their bed. Now they have to sleep in it. Even if it is in a car. Good night, Martha. Good night, Robert. I hung up. I sat in the dark for a moment thinking about David, my son. He was out there somewhere, with a woman who faked bruises, with a woman who stole spoons, with no money, no home, and no reputation. My heart hurt for him, but it was a distant hurt, like a bruise that was finally healing. I walked into the kitchen. I did not turn on the main lights. I flipped the switch for the small light over the stove. It cast a dim yellow glow across the room. David was sitting at the island. He was slumped over. His expensive suit jacket was gone. His white dress shirt was stained with sweat and dirt. He looked like a man who had walked 5 miles in Italian loafers. He looked up when he saw me. His eyes were hollow. Mom, he croaked. He made a move to stand up, to hug me, to get the comfort he had relied on for 32 years. Sit down, I said. I did not open my arms. I tightened the belt of my robe. I stayed on the other side of the island. The marble countertop was a barrier between us, a necessary border. I am so thirsty, he whispered. I walked to the sink. I filled a glass with tap water. I slid it across the counter. He drank it in one gulp. He wiped his mouth with his dirty sleeve. She is crazy, Mom, he said. She just snapped. We were at the gas station on Route 9. I went inside to buy water. When I came out, the car was moving. She drove right past me. She screamed that I was a loser, that I was a mama's boy, and then she peeled out onto the highway. He shook his head. She took my phone. She took my wallet. She took everything. I looked at him. She took everything 5 years ago, David, I said. You just didn't notice until she took the car. He looked down at his hands. I know, he said softly. I know I messed up. Messed up? I asked. Is that what you call it? You watched her treat me like a servant. You watched her steal from me. You watched her humiliate me in front of guests. And you did nothing. Why, David? That is the only question I need answered. Why did you let her? He was silent for a long time. The refrigerator hummed. Because it was easier. He finally admitted the truth, finally. Easier. I asked. Yes, he said. If I stood up to her, she would scream. She would cry. She would make my life hell for days. But you. He looked at me with wet eyes. You never screamed. You never complained. You just took it. So I let you take it. Because I wanted peace. And I sacrificed you to get it. The words hung in the air. They were brutal, but they were honest. He had traded my dignity for his comfort. I felt a sharp pain in my chest. But it was a clean pain, the pain of a bone being set. Thank you, I said, for finally telling the truth. I am so sorry. He wept. He put his head on the cool marble. I have nothing left, Mom. I lost the apartment. I lost the car. I am going to lose my job when the partners hear about the fraud. I am a failure. I am 32 and I am homeless. He looked up at me, begging, Can I stay? Please. I will sleep in the basement. I will do anything. I looked at my son, the boy I had raised, the man who had lost his way. I could kick him out. I could tell him to walk back to the gas station. It would be justified. But I was not Vanessa. I did not destroy people for sport. But I was not the old Martha either. I was not the doormat. You can stay, I said. His shoulders sagged with relief. Oh, thank you, Under conditions, I interrupted. My voice was steel. He froze. What conditions? First, I said, you are not a guest. You are a tenant. And tenants pay rent. But I have no money, he protested. Then you will pay in labor, I said. You will paint the fence you promised to fix 3 years ago. You will weed the garden. You will clean the gutters. And you will cook your own meals. I am not your maid, David. I am your landlord. He nodded slowly. Okay. I can do that. Second, I continued. You will file for divorce. Tomorrow morning. You will call Robert. He offered to help. You will get a lawyer. And you will ensure that Vanessa does not get a single penny of my money or yours. You will testify to the fraud. You will testify to the theft. You will not protect her anymore. David took a deep breath. He looked terrified. The idea of fighting Vanessa still scared him, but then he looked at the empty kitchen. He looked at his dirty shirt. He remembered the car driving away. I will, he said. I will destroy her. No, I corrected. You will just tell the truth. That will be enough to destroy her. And third, I said, this is the most important one. You have a curfew. A curfew? He asked. You are 32, I said, but you act like a child. So I am treating you like one. 10 p.m. No drinking. No guests. And if I see one moment of disrespect, if I see you roll your eyes, if I hear you sigh when I ask for help, you are out. Permanently. Do we have a deal? I extended my hand across the island. I did not offer a hug. I offered a handshake like a business partner. David looked at my hand. He looked at my face. He saw the new lines of strength around my eyes. He stood up. He reached out. His grip was weak at first. Then he tightened it. We have a deal, he said. Good. I said. I pulled my hand back. There is a sleeping bag in the hall closet. The couch is in the living room. Do not use the good throw pillows. Good night, David. I turned to leave. Mom, he called out. I stopped. I did not turn around. Yeah. Did you really glue the wine cellar shut? I smiled into the darkness. Yes. And tomorrow, I said, you are going to scrape it out. I walked up the stairs. My legs felt heavy, but my heart felt light. I had my house back, and maybe, just maybe, I would get my son back too, the real one, not the hollow shell Vanessa had created. I went into my bedroom. I locked the door. Old habits die hard. I checked my phone one last time. There was a new email from the Community Watch Group. Urgent alert, police activity on Highway 9. Report of a single vehicle. Accident involving a black convertible. Driver fled the scene on foot. Suspect description. Female, wearing a designer hoodie, possibly intoxicated. I stared at the screen. Vanessa. She had crashed the car. David's car. I felt a pang of worry. Not for her, for the insurance premiums. I put the phone down. I turned off the light. I pulled the duvet up to my chin. The house was quiet. Downstairs, my tenant was sleeping on the couch. Outside, the police were hunting a fugitive. Fashionista, and me? I was going to sleep until noon, because tomorrow was Sunday, and I didn't have to cook for anyone. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in 5 years, I dreamed of nothing but blue hydrangeas. But the story wasn't quite over, because morning always brings the light, and with the light comes the final accounting. The sun hit my face at 9 a.m. I woke up slowly. I didn't jump out of bed. I stretched. I listened. I heard a sound from the garden. Scrape. Scrape. It was a rhythmic sound. I walked to the window. I looked down. David was there. He was wearing an old pair of jeans he must have found in the basement. He was on his knees. He was weeding the hydrangeas. He looked terrible. His hair was messy. His back was sunburned. But he was working. I smiled. I showered and dressed. I put on a nice linen dress, not a uniform, my own clothes. I walked downstairs. The living room was tidy. The sleeping bag was folded neatly in the corner. The couch cushions were fluffed. He was learning fast. I went into the kitchen. I made coffee. I poured 2 cups. I walked out to the porch. "Morning," I said. David jumped. He wiped his forehead. "Morning, Mom. I mean, Mrs. Higgins," he joked weakly. "Mom is fine," I said, "as long as the rent is paid." I handed him the coffee. He took it with both hands. "Thanks." We stood there looking at the garden. "The police called," he said quietly. "About the car?" "Yeah. It's totaled. Wrapped around a telephone pole." "Did they find her?" David nodded. He took a sip of coffee. His hand trembled slightly. "They found her walking down the highway. She was trying to hitchhike to the airport. She told the officers she was a famous influencer and she was being kidnapped. They didn't believe her?" "Not after they ran her ID," David said. "Apparently, Agent Miller from the bank filed a report last night, and Uncle Robert called the district attorney. She has pending charges for grand larceny, identity theft, and filing a false police report. She is in custody. She used her one phone call to call me." I looked at him. "And I didn't answer," David said. "I let it go to voicemail. She left a message screaming that I needed to bail her out, that I owed her. I deleted it." He looked at me. His eyes were clear. "I called Robert this morning," he continued. "He gave me the name of a shark divorce lawyer. I am meeting him tomorrow. And I called my boss. I told him everything. I told him about the debt, the fraud, everything. I figured it was better he heard it from me." "And?" I asked. "He put me on probation," David said. "Unpaid suspension for a month. But he didn't fire me. He said he respected the honesty. So I have a month of free time." He gestured to the garden. "To paint the fence. And fix the roof. And maybe fix myself." I put my hand on his shoulder. It felt solid. "That sounds like a good plan," I said. Just then, a car pulled into the driveway. It was a sleek black sedan. The driver got out. It was Uncle Robert. He walked up the path. He was carrying a box, a wooden crate. "Good morning," he boomed. "I hope I am not too early." "You are right on time, Robert," I said. "Coffee?" "Black, please." He set the crate down on the porch table. He looked at David. He looked at the dirt on his knees. "Working hard?" Robert asked. "Trying to," David said. "Good." Robert turned to me. "I brought something." He pried open the lid of the crate. Inside were 6 bottles of wine, vintage red, dusty bottles, "from my private cellar," Robert said, "to replace the ones that are temporarily inaccessible. I thought we could have a do-over. A proper family lunch. No galas. No investors. Just us. And maybe some of that pasta I heard you made last night." I laughed. "I think that can be arranged." "David," I said, "wash your hands. You are peeling the garlic." "Yes, ma'am," he said. He ran to the hose. I looked at Robert. I looked at my house. The for sale sign that Vanessa had secretly planned to put up would never touch my lawn. The foreclosure would be paid off with David's hard work and my savings. The silence was gone, but the noise was good now. It was the noise of chopping vegetables, the noise of laughter, the noise of honesty. We sat on the porch for a long time. We drank the wine. We ate the pasta. We didn't talk about Vanessa. She was a ghost story now, a cautionary tale. We talked about the future, about the hydrangeas, about the value of a dollar earned, not stolen. As the sun went down, I looked at my son. He was tired, he was broke, he was single, but he was smiling, a real smile. "Mom," he said, "this is perfect." I looked at him. I raised my glass. "No, David," I said. "It isn't perfect. The fence is peeling. The bank account is low, and we have a lot of work to do. But it is real. And that, I said, taking a sip of the vintage red, is so much better than perfect. I leaned back in my chair, the wind chimed through the trees, the nightmare was over. I was Martha Higgins, I was 68 years old, I was a gardener, I was a landlord, and finally, once again, I was a mother.